Hello, everyone. Welcome to Lawyers Who Stream episode 9. We had episode 10 last week, but we're going back to episode 9 because there was a technical hiccup last time we had Mr. Gold out. My guest tonight, Doron Gold, is a staff clinician at Homewood Health. Homewood Health, of course, the operator of the Ontario Legal Professions Member Assistance Program, registered with the Ontario College of Social Workers and Social Service Workers, as well as with the Law Society of Ontario as a lawyer. Prior to being a therapist, he was a practicing lawyer who worked primarily in family and civil litigation. He is here to talk about what he knows best, which is mental health among legal professionals. Doron, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad we were able to do this.
So, start off just briefly talking about your legal career. You worked with legal aid family law clients, particularly women and kids, escaped domestic violence, many of them in shelters. And how would you say this experience early in your career shaped you as a lawyer and as a person who operates in this profession?
So I guess I should put it in a context because I'll step a couple steps back from there to take us there because
Hmm.
I actually pulled this out because sometimes when I'm talking to law students, I pulled this out to prove that I was actually there. This is my graduation picture
Oh, yes.
from Osgoode Hall Law School, 1994.
Hmm.
And at that point, when I graduated, I didn't want to be a lawyer. I didn't really like law school very much, and
Hmm.
I tried it a little bit and then I didn't. And then I thought, no, I'm going to give this a good shot and got a job. And that led to doing family law. And the family law came because I was searching for something in law that I would actually be fulfilled by. I wasn't fulfilled by insurance defense work. I wasn't fulfilled by construction liens
Hmm.
and construction litigation or general civil litigation. I wasn't fulfilled by doing some trademarks. I had tried some different things, in part because I really didn't know what in law was going to be of interest to me. And when family law kind of fell in my lap, because the office I was working in had an institutional client who was a general contractor who would build water treatment plants and such. And when they dropped my firm, I had to scramble to find work elsewhere, and they were also doing legal aid family law work. So I learned family law really quick and discovered, oh, so there's actually human beings involved in this. You can actually impact people's lives. I was always kind of social worky anyway.
Right.
I had been through counseling myself and had been compelled by that work. In fact, I probably would have, if I had thought it was possible, become a counselor back then, but I didn't think it was going to be possible because I had a political science background. I didn't have a psychology background.
Right.
And so I did the work and started finding that as much as law itself and the fighting in court and the incivility and the adversarial nature was not who I was, I did feel like I could do some good things. I could, you know, I liked doing the work for women uh, who had to go to shelters, who needed help with family law matters, but it also felt a little bit like social work. I used to call it pseudo social work because
Yeah.
I would help them not just get child support and get safety, but also help them find themselves again.
Hmm.
Learn strategies for handling the difficult situation they were in, not just in a legal sense, but in a human sense.
Right. Yeah, I understand that in family law and a lot of these areas of law, the line between lawyer and social work gets a bit blurry sometimes. And often that's because of the circumstances, people simply can't turn anywhere else to get help. They get assigned a lawyer, but they might not be able to seek a social worker or have a case work at the same time. And of course, you can't. Of course, you're with them, so you have
Mm.
to give the best advice you can. But you, like you said, you did eventually leave the profession in 2006, and you then got certified as a personal coach at that time. So, can you explain a little bit about what a personal coach is, first of all?
Sure, if I can, because my relationship with coaching is more almost like a bridge thing than anything else. What happened was I was becoming very clear to me in the early 2000s that I didn't really want to be a lawyer. But what was I going to do? I would have loved to be a therapist, but I couldn't imagine in my late 30s, early 40s going back to school. And I thought at the time it would take years and years of schooling. So I thought, okay, if I'm not going to be able to be a therapist, personal coaching isn't therapy at all, but it is helping people one on one with their lives, generally speaking, it's helping them not so much out of distress as taking them, let's say, from here in their lives to here to maximizing their lives and their experiences. And I did coach training, and it was really excellent training. I did that while I was practicing law in 2005,
Hmm.
certified as a coach. And my plan was early 2006, I hung up my robes and started a coaching practice, and was um, was searching for clients. I thought at the time in coaching, you kind of want to have a niche. My niche was going to be either working with lawyers because I knew lawyers, or it was going to be working with people going through separation, marital separation, because I had been a family lawyer, thought I could bring some understanding of pitfalls, best practices, etc.
Right.
It's a little bit instructive, but it's also about finding the individual's wisdom inside of them, asking powerful questions to bring out of them what they want, what their goals are, what would fulfill them, what their struggles are, what's getting in their way. And in the process of trying to build a coaching practice, one day, serendipitously, I picked up the phone and called what used to be called OLAP, known as the Ontario Lawyers Assistance Program. They were the lawyer assistance program in Ontario prior to 2012.
Hmm.
And I was calling to solicit clients. I said, I know your clientele, and you should send people to me. You should refer people to me as a professional. And they said, well, why don't you come in and talk to us? So we had a bit of an interview, myself and the program manager and the executive director. And it was a very nice experience. And I left, and then they never sent me anyone. Except that 2 or 3 months later, in the spring of 2006, I got a call from the program manager saying, we're hiring a part time case manager. Do you want to work here? So that interview led to an opportunity to work with lawyers. It wasn't as a counselor, although I could be supportive because the case manager would be the intake person at the lawyer assistance program
Right.
and would then shepherd people into different services, counseling and peer support and certain instructional things or even other programs. And then along the way, I could be a support person too. And that was a way to do that kind of work. And I'd keep building a coaching practice on the side, except what ended up happening was they had me on part time for a while, which led to full time. And that's how the road came here. So when I talk to young lawyers often about their journey,
Hmm.
I had no idea that I would end up here as a therapist, working at the lawyer assistance program, talking to lawyers on Twitter and uh, doing psychoeducational presentations and such. I didn't see this back then. I could have not known that. In fact, that one phone call to the lawyer assistance program changed everything because being in the game and putting your best foot forward sometimes is the way that things pop. Sometimes it's luck. There was
Hmm.
luck to that call,
For
but it
sure.
changed the course of things, right? I couldn't have foreseen that.
Hmm. So from case manager, what then brought you to taking on a full-time role as a therapist? Um, obviously,
Um,
obviously you stayed within the program, but how did that shift occur?
yeah, well, it was sort of a couple things. Number one, at the time, I really wanted to be a therapist. I just didn't know how to do it in short order and still, pay my mortgage and, you know, have a life.
Hmm.
I was already in my 40s. And my program manager at the time sort of said, you should probably, if you want to do real counseling, upgrade your skills, become certified. And she found a program through the University of Windsor,
Hmm.
which is a working professionals program. It was a part-time program, spanned about 32 months on the weekends. I could keep my day job, pay my bills, and still do a master's of social work, which would get me to the point of being qualified to say I am a psychotherapist and I can do that kind of work. And that made a lot of sense. That seemed doable to me, and I jumped right at it, which led
Fantastic.
to graduating in 2012, right at about the point when the Law Society decided they no longer wished to fund OLAP and hired Homewood Health to provide lawyer assistance to Ontario legal professionals.
Sounds like it was meant to be.
It worked
Good
out
timing.
because
Yep.
Homewood Health recruited me and I came on, and I was sort of initially, I guess I was sort of like a lawyer whisperer because I spoke that language.
Hmm.
And the program expanded from there. We created a peer support program, which still is operating. Another lawyer has come on as well, who's now a therapist, Alicia Davies.
Hmm.
it's a comprehensive program now. Again, I could have never foreseen any of this. It was simply having some belief in the universe and putting one foot in front of the other.
So let's talk about the member assistance program as it is now. Tell me a little bit about what you do, what its purpose is, how you can access it, and the services you provide to lawyers at the LSO.
Sure. Um, so start by just understanding the Law Society is the funder along with LawPro. Um, but the being a funder is where its involvement ends,
Right.
because they are aware and we are aware and the profession is aware that if it was a Law Society operated program, people would be quite hesitant to call with their most vulnerable issues, depression, addiction, etc.
So firm separation between the two, no information going back and forth.
So separated that there is actually a company, an intermediary broker company in between us that communicates. We communicate through them. So we have clear separation from the Law Society and Law Pro, and the only information that goes to them is general aggregating of data about the type of issues people call about, or the type of whether it's small firm, large firm, etc. There is no personal information ever shared. It's not just our arrangement with the Law Society. Homewood Health also, is the EAP for U of T and Canada Post and CBC and Air Canada.
Hmm.
The employee assistance program world is a confidential world. Employers hire us to provide confidential services to employees. The only unique thing about this one is the lawyers and the paralegals and the law students are not employees of the Law Society, so it's a unique program,
Right.
but it still requires that we be very attentive to confidentiality, particularly for a profession where that type of information is very sensitive. People need to know that it's a safe place to call. So we have to repeatedly reassure them this is a safe place to call. And so the entitlement is lawyers, paralegals, law students, and paralegal students, judges, and immediate family members of all of those people. So spouses, you could come for couples counseling. If you have a teenage daughter who is dealing with depression, she can come for counseling. It's a very comprehensive program, and those are the people who can access it. It's free because it's paid for by Law Society and LawPro.
Hmm.
And what's offered is the counseling that I've mentioned. It's professional therapists across the province, in fact, across the country, but this is an Ontario program. Right now, it's being offered by video on a secure platform, by telephone, or by e-counseling, which is sort of chat-based counseling.
Hmm.
And as soon as the world returns back to some semblance of normality, there'll be face-to-face counseling again as well. And there's people all across the province where people can meet them right there where they are. Um, and they're offered short-term solution-focused counseling. They're offered some potential cognitive behavioral therapy for depression or anxiety
Hmm.
or for trauma. Um, it's really, the idea is the Law Society and Law Pro identified a long time ago, and it's not just them. Every jurisdiction in North America has a lawyer assistance program
Yeah.
because they identify it is not only the right thing to do, but it is also smart for the administration of justice that people not just keep showing up for a murder trial where they're representing the accused and they're a little altered by alcohol, or people have anxiety and can't open their mail or respond to queries by their clients. Some people might look at that and say that's an ungovernable lawyer, or that's a negligent lawyer. I look at that and say that's a lawyer struggling with anxiety or addiction, and they can be helped, and they may otherwise be excellent at their work, and we don't want to lose people like that in the profession, but
Hmm.
we also want to protect the public. So we don't treat them as perpetrators. We treat them as human beings who are vulnerable, who, if they receive the proper kind of help and support, can keep working. You don't have to be like things like depression are not disqualifying for law practice. So we help, we support. That's the counseling part.
Hmm.
There's also a really great thing which we try to mention as often as possible because it's a little different. It's peer support. So some people know what peer support is if they were in law school. Most law schools have peer support. They have
Yeah,
a 3L will
like a peer mentor, get matched with someone.
exactly
Hmm.
someone who just sort of speaks that language, who has who's had their experiences and who can then offer you the comfort of, I've been there too.
Right.
Peer support in this context is lawyers and paralegals who have been through alcohol addiction, anxiety, bipolar disorder, whatever the life circumstance, law society, discipline issues, um, you know, suicidal thoughts. I mean, there's really every possible challenge in life or in law. Our peer volunteers have dealt with those things, and therefore they can be matched with someone just to talk to them. It's like mentorship, except it's not hierarchical. It's not instructive. The peers listen. They offer support. They judge not a lick. They're
Mhm.
just there because people who are going through a hard time shouldn't be alone with it. They
Right.
need to have someone with them to go through it with them, to understand, to validate their experience. Because the legal professionals are often full out judging themselves, saying, I'm weak, I should be able to handle this. Look at all the other lawyers I know, they're all so brilliant and pulled together. I
Mhm.
must be the one who's, just failing when they're not. And so the more you can validate that experience and have them be kinder to themselves by watching someone else who went through it, who's in a better place, who is being kind to them about it and even offering them the possibility that they could be in a better place too. That's one of the most important things that we do, because that's someone in the profession who is very much like you. And when we match people, we match them on the basis of as many affinities as we can find. It's geography and primarily the issue they're dealing with, so that a person who's dealing with, let's say, alcohol abuse will be speaking with someone who speaks that language because they've been through it themselves. It's a very unique skill set and understanding. But it's also gender or gender identification or culture, um, uh, age, whatever affinities we can find, so that the person feels like they're talking to someone with similar lived experience, and they come from a similar place, so they get it.
Mhm.
That is so affirming, particularly from someone in the profession, because they speak that language too.
Right. And are there any just concerns about certain barriers? Are there any limits on the amount of time one can spend in the program? Is there an application process that anything needs to be disclosed or anything like that?
The application process, it's not really application, it's simply just either calling or going to the website.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the website is myassistplan.com.
myassistplan.com.
And the phone number, I'll just say it slowly for people to take down if they want to. It's 855-403-8922. That's often the best way, is just to call and just even ask questions first, just to make sure. All they really want is basic demographic information so they can open a file. So you get the name and the phone number and the address and the birth date, and I think that's the extent of it,
Mm-hmm.
and the issue that you want help with. And once the person is in, they'll get assessed as to what would be the best service for them, and who would be, if they need counseling, who would be the best practitioner for them, because different practitioners have different experiences. So in our case, Alicia and I, being former lawyers, will often have lawyers and law students and paralegals sent to us, because we sometimes understand what they're going through. Now, it's not really relevant to talk to a former lawyer if you're dealing with conflict with your mother,
Mm-hmm.
over a property or something, and you're just stressed out by it. That has nothing to do with being a lawyer.
Right.
Or if you're breaking up with your partner. But if you're talking about the stress of work, and a new lawyer whose confidence is low and is struggling with, am I cut out to be a lawyer, or someone going through the discipline process, or a couple days ago it was someone someone in their 50s who's kind of tired of practice, but it's hard to leave. They're not sure if it's the right thing to do. That stuff is all on the table. And the fact that I or Alicia have been practicing lawyers sometimes helps in having a shorthand, knowing some of that stuff that doesn't have to be explained. And lawyers often are frustrated when they go to counseling, because there are certain things they want the person to just get, and
Yeah.
sometimes the counselors don't get it.
I know with my own therapist. So fortunately, they see a lot of lawyers themselves
Mm-hmm.
in their practice. So when I mention things like summaring or articling or law society this or that, they get it. They get the language, but I know
Mm-hmm.
it's not the case for a lot of people often. So it's good to be able to step in and just be able to use these terms without explaining. I got a bit of a tough question for you, so I hope you're ready for it. But
I'm ready.
thinking a lot about, these are great resources for lawyers that are struggling with the profession, but there are a lot of root causes that often aren't addressed. There's vicarious trauma from working in this profession, burnout, toxic work environments, long hours, high pressure situations, and all of these things I see as stemming from a particular culture in
Mhm.
law. Do you see ways to start that conversation to start to shift the culture, or has the culture remained pretty static as you've been doing this? Do you see any movement there that might actually start getting at some of these root causes?
It's a really, really important question because a lot of the conversation, even online, is about it's nice that my firm, offers free counseling and has a yoga room, but it would be nicer if they didn't make me work 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
These systemic stressors, and they start right in law school because sometimes the law schools are fostering this mixed message: take care of yourself, now get back to work.
Hmm.
And it also fosters, some workplaces that are toxic in terms of the incivility that certain people are subjected to, um, or you know the barriers put in front of people on the basis of disability or on the basis of being a person of color or indigenous person. I know for a fact I'm a physically disabled person from birth. There are law jobs I didn't get because the moment I walked into the office with my cane, walking on my artificial leg, I became a curiosity and not a candidate. I was no longer thought of as someone that they were interested in terms of the work I could do. They were now, oh, what's that about? Change the conversation. Now I'm the anomaly. I don't fit in anymore. I'm going to have to be that much more compelling to even be considered. That happens to people all the time because they walk in with black skin, because they walk in a South Asian person or whatever it is. However, a person walks into a room or walks into a Zoom meeting, the world as it exists, but particularly anachronistic, old-fashioned systems like the legal profession, we know are geared towards the conservative idea that we keep things the way they are and the way they've always been because it's always worked that way
Hmm.
in all kinds of ways, including the way people look and including the way people, comport themselves. And there's so many ways that it keeps itself one way. So when you ask, are things changing? So the analogy I've often used is it's kind of like a tanker, like an oil tanker on the ocean. It is turning, but it takes a long time to turn an oil tanker.
Hmm.
So it's really slow, but I can tell you, um, Bay Street firms did not call people like me to do mental health talks. And now we do them systematically for new articling classes, new summer students at lots of Bay Street firms.
Hmm.
That never happened before. The Law Society, somewhere around 2015, 2016, completed a task force on mental health and addictions, which was comprehensive, excellent. Law societies didn't used to do that. There's so much in the way that things are unfolding that is a sign that things are better, and there's so much that is a sign that some of the old ideas are pushing back and resisting the change. Thing about it is, you look at certain people who are, let's say, in the system, in the system of working at a big firm, and it's not serving them. The newer generation, millennials all on down, are saying, no, that's not the life I want. Maybe I'll just go hang out a shingle and do this myself.
Hmm.
That's hard to do for some people, right? I couldn't have done it. I didn't have the confidence to just try to do that. I felt like I needed some mentorship. But some people do that, or some people say, no, I'm just not going to work in a place like that, or I'm not going to be treated that way by a senior partner. Life's too short. I'll go find something else. So some of the change in the profession is spurred by newer generations who are coming up knowing that these are important topics, that you're not going to have a good legal career if you're not actually taking care of yourself, if you're burning yourself out, if you're being subjected to, as you said, vicarious trauma, for instance, as I'd say a child protection lawyer
Hmm.
or a family lawyer or a criminal lawyer, and you're not actually having support in the office to deal with difficult cases. You're not having the ability to debrief a particularly difficult file. Um, Lots of lawyers are saying, that life's too short. I'm going to go work in a more supportive environment. I'm going to go work the hours I want to work. I'm going to make sure to work in the kind of law that I want to practice. So the changes are occurring. Um, and for many people, not nearly fast enough.
Mhm. The way I see it, and you sort of hinted at this when talking about younger lawyers, basically deciding that they don't want to work in the system anymore until, as the big firms find it more difficult, I guess, to retain talent and particularly retain talented young people. I think that's maybe when the oil tanker will start to turn a little faster, because that you can't operate the way things are forever if your new recruits are going to be actively resisting the way that you're doing things and not sticking around.
It's true, and that is subject to the vicissitudes of the market.
Yeah.
So if you're in a bad job market, then the employers actually sort of get to pick and get to say, if you don't like it here, there's a lineup around this building of people who'll take your place in 5 seconds.
Hmm.
So you can be here and do things the way we do them, or it's okay, we have other people. We're in a time right now where there's a lot of competition for talent.
Yeah.
So, but that changes. Oh, depends on the era. When I got called to the bar in 1996, it was not a good time to look for a law job,
Hmm.
and that's happened a few times. So it also depends on the state of the market at that time.
Yeah. Not fantastic at the moment either. I will add. Yeah. There was a power dynamic at play there.
Mm,
Before we sign off, it would be remiss of me not to mention our current state of affairs, this pandemic that we're in. We're currently on the phone. All my meetings are on phones or on
mhm.
Zoom calls these days. How has the pandemic changed in the past year and a half or so, or maybe even accelerated trends in how we talk about mental health in the profession? And also, have you seen in your practice any new or accelerating issues come up with your clients?
The thing that I noticed about the pandemic more than anything else was that it was generally not the primary issue for any client that I was talking about, for the most part.
Hmm.
But it was the context for everything that was going on with people. So it was the straw that broke the camel's back for some people. It was, the additional stressor. It was the thing that complicated an already complicated situation. So if you're a young lawyer, you're new in the profession, and you're now virtual, and how do you regulate your workflow, whether to let people know you've got enough or maybe you need more work? Do you initiate an entire Zoom call with your supervisor just to say I need work? How do you interact? How do you keep things going? How do you get mentorship? Do you feel like you're imposing on someone when you actually reach out to them? When you in the office, you could just walk down the hall and poke your head in. So those issues were big. The issues of boundaries around work became very big, because if you work from home, your home is your work.
Hmm.
When does work stop?
Right.
If you're leaving your home in the morning, getting in your car or getting on public transit and going to work, or getting on your bike and riding down to the office, going in the office, you're now at your workplace. You work there until the workday is over. You leave the office and go home, and they're two separate places.
Hmm.
Some people bring work home, sure. Some people have trouble turning it off, but lots of people could take that delineation and run with it. Now, if I'm writing a factum at my kitchen table, but I'm also eating my eggs at the kitchen table, where does one end and the other begin? And if my employer doesn't have any particular boundaries or rules around that to make sure that I'm stopping work at some point, especially if I'm new to the profession, I already don't really know how much is enough.
Hmm.
If I'm preparing, there's been times when I worked with, like, say, an articling student or a first year associate who is pulling all nighters and really just beating themselves up, never knowing what's enough. And we'll do a little experiment uh, where we'll say, dial back your effort 30%, see if anybody notices. And every single person that we've done this experiment with has come back and said, nobody really noticed,
Yeah.
because they didn't have enough experience to know how much is enough effort, but they just kept going and going. And when you say slow it down, dial it back a little, and see if we can calibrate this to a healthy level, now they might actually have an evening with their partner instead of working straight through. So the pandemic has done that to people, along with the basic fact that this has been very difficult for people who are extroverted, who miss being with other people, hugging people, talking to people, having drinks with people.
Hmm.
It's been really difficult for people who are locked away in their houses and have to do their job, but also take care of the kids doing virtual learning down the hall. And there's a liquor cabinet just down the hall from there. and they're all stressed out because there's a virus out there, and there's news, and people are stressed out, and there's marches, and then on top of that, other other issues in society are bubbling up. A lot of stress. I
Hmm.
just posted a thing on my Twitter account. I have my Twitter handle there for anybody who's interested.
Yeah.
On my Twitter account, I posted a poll yesterday about, has social media improved mental health, uh, reduced mental health, been neutral, and it was like 80% made their mental health worse.
Yeah.
It's stressful. It's also
Absolutely.
great, by the way. There's a lot of support out there,
Hmm.
but in a time like this, it's easy to get stirred up. We often recommend people do things like news diets or social media diets, where they just curtail the fire hose of news and information coming at them,
Yeah. Step away for a little bit.
just to de-escalate it.
Mm. Oh, thank you. I definitely identify with a lot of things that you said, particularly the I mean, I'm doing this from my bedroom right now, which is where I do basically everything else in my life. It's extremely difficult to get that make that separation between work and home. And for someone new to the profession who doesn't know the amount of effort they need to put in, can't see it in front of them in the office with their peers,
Mm-hmm.
definitely feel that. So I think that's great. That little experiment, I'm going to try that next time someone asks for advice.
And by the way, one of the things about legal professionals is
Mhm.
we're so self-judging that we often, when we're feeling like we're not doing well or we're not doing it right, we don't go and talk to people and find out, what do you think?
Yeah.
We're too ashamed. So we keep it in, and we fester in that. So I've always thought, more than anything else, and this is another way the pandemic has complicated things. Um, you need we are attachment creatures. We need to be attached to other human beings. We need comfort, we need perspective, we need love, we need support, we need fun, and the pandemic has gotten in the way of that because we've had limitations on activity, but also on just getting in the same room as people. And we need the support of other people, and we need to give people support. Lawyers isolate way too much. Law students isolate way too much. It's the biggest problem. So I always say it out loud to somebody. Find a safe person. It doesn't have to be, someone in your firm who you're not sure how they're going to take it. Find someone outside of the firm, but find someone who you know is going to be compassionate and non-judgmental, and share your feelings, share your experience, get validated. Everyone has gone through a hard time during the pandemic, but not everyone thinks they should have. Some of them think they should have handled it better, which is just ridiculous. This has
Absolutely.
been hard for everybody.
Hmm. I think we'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Doron, for coming
My
on,
pleasure.
for talking about the program. If you can give me the website one more time, just to include
Yes.
in the notes.
www.myassistplan.com.
Myassistplan.com, and that phone number is
1 855 403 8922.
854922.
And
Perfect.
it's free and it's confidential.
Excellent.
And you're entitled to use it the moment you get into law school.
It's for 1L on.
1L on, the first day of law school, all the way through to past retirement.
Very good. Thanks so much for coming on.
My pleasure.
Next week we have Chad Haggerty, who I believe I'm being told is just
He
got
got
called to
called
the
today.
bar. Yeah, so
Yeah.
congratulations to him. He'll be on next week to talk about whatever he wants to talk about. He just seemed keen on the idea. Very interesting guy, so I'm sure we'll have lots to discuss. But yeah, Lawyers Who Stream continuing to roll on. We're coming. This is our tenth episode. Which is weird to think. I thought maybe I'd do one or two of these and then call it quits, but people have been great. The YouTube archives do quite well, and yeah, I'll make sure to get this up tomorrow, and so you can share it around.
Thank you.
All right, cheers. Have a good night.
You too.